Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. We've all heard about metabolism, right? Usually in the context of, diet fads.
Yeah, absolutely.
But today we're going to cut through the noise. We want to explore what really happens when your body's energy system goes, well, a bit awry. And more importantly, how we can maybe guide it back to balance. We've got a fantastic stack of sources for this deep dive, packed with insights.
Yeah, some really solid stuff from critical care, endocrinology, nutrition.
Exercise physiology, too. So our mission, let's unpack the complex science of metabolic function and, crucially, this idea of metabolic restoration.
Indeed. And metabolic restoration, it's really about reestablishing the body's balanced and efficient energy function after it's been disrupted somehow.
Okay.
It's rooted in understanding why. Why did it go off track and how? Down to the molecular cellular level.
Right.
And then applying these multidisciplinary strategies to guide the body back
Yeah.
to a sustainable state. It's truly about restoring functional metabolic health.
Functional health. I like that.
Yeah, enabling your tissues to properly generate and use energy, fostering healing, and, maintaining resilience against stress.
Okay, so let's delve into this then, before we even think about fixing it. How do you know? How do you know if your metabolism needs restoring in the first place? What are the signs, the red flags?
That's a really important question because, honestly, the signs can be quite nonspecific on their own. You might brush them off. But when metabolic pathways are out of balance, the body, it struggles. It struggles to meet its energy and repair needs, and this shows up in, like, a cluster of telling symptoms.
Okay, so for our listeners who are maybe already quite tuned into their health, what are some of the maybe more subtle or unexpected signs they might overlook? Signs that point to metabolic disruption.
Well, one of the most common and yet easily dismissed is unexplained fatigue and exercise intolerance.
Okay, that sounds familiar for a lot of people.
Right. But we're talking persistent lack of energy, disproportionate tiredness after really minimal exertion,
Right.
or just hitting a wall super quickly during activity.
Oh, okay.
This often points to cells just failing to produce adequate ATP, the body's energy currency. It's a clear sign their power generation is kind of faltering.
Right.
And a really key specific symptom here is post-exertional malaise.
Okay, what's that exactly?
That's where exhaustion and other symptoms flare up after activity, often seen in post-viral syndromes like long COVID. It's not just being tired. It's a specific kind of exhaustion that just doesn't get better with rest. It's a crash.
Wow. Okay. And when that kind of fatigue is coupled with maybe changes in our physical selves, what should we look for then?
Yeah, you might see muscle wasting or persistent muscle soreness.
Yeah.
When metabolism is disrupted, the balance often tips towards catabolism breakdown over anabolism, which is building things up.
Right, the building part.
Exactly. And this can lead to progressive loss of muscle mass and strength, or muscles that just don't recover well after exercise.
Yeah.
They stay sore. In severe cases, this is actually called cachexia. We see it in critical illness, for instance. Patients can lose like 15–20% of their body weight, mostly muscle, in just a few weeks in the ICU.
15 to 20%. Wow.
Yeah, it's a rapid, profound loss of the very tissue that drives so much of our daily energy use.
That's staggering. So what about the body's ability to, repair itself, heal, defend itself?
Absolutely. That's another big one. Poor wound healing and frequent infections are significant red flags.
Okay.
Metabolism and immunity are really closely linked. So if metabolism is deranged, maybe from malnutrition or hormonal issues, healing just falters.
Right.
Wounds might heal incredibly slowly or even reopen. Infections can pop up with unusual frequency or severity.
Like more colds than usual or things getting worse than they should.
Exactly. Or skin infections, UTIs, things like that. For example, chronic high blood sugar and diabetes impairs white blood cell function and actually feeds pathogens. So if you see delayed wound healing or recurring infections, it's a strong indicator. It suggests inadequate metabolic support for immune function and tissue repair.
And our brains, our minds, you hear about brain fog a lot. Is that connected?
Precisely. The brain is a highly metabolic organ, hugely demanding. So metabolic disruption can definitely manifest as cognitive dysfunction and mood disturbances.
Okay.
Think brain fog, Poor concentration, memory issues, or maybe unexplained depression and anxiety kicking in. Conditions like hypothyroidism, for instance, can cause that real mental sluggishness, while high cortisol from chronic stress can lead to mood swings.
Right, the stress hormone.
Yeah, and even mild chronic malnutrition can leave the brain underfueled. So new cognitive or mood problems, especially if they come alongside that physical fatigue we talked about, often signal an underlying metabolic issue. It's like the brain's internal power supply is flickering.
Okay. And then probably the most visible sign for many people, I guess, weight changes.
Yes, unintended weight loss or gain is a very common metabolic signal. It often prompts people to seek answers.
Right, because it's noticeable.
Exactly. Unintentional weight loss, even if you're eating normally or even a lot, often means the body's in a hypercatabolic state. It's breaking down its own tissues for fuel. Think cancer cachexia or uncontrolled hyperthyroidism.
Okay.
Conversely, weight gain, especially fat gain, without obvious overeating, can occur in conditions like hypothyroidism or with insulin resistance in, say, polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS.
Right.
So these aren't just, simple lifestyle issues. They really warrant a deeper look at the underlying metabolic hormones and processes.
So the key takeaway here seems to be these symptoms might seem vague on their own. Fatigue, brain fog, slow healing. But if you're experiencing a cluster of them or they pop up after an illness or a major stressor, it's really time for a deeper look. Your body's trying to tell you something isn't right with its energy system.
Exactly. It's about listening to that whole picture.
Okay, so we've mapped out those alarms, the subtle ones and the not so subtle ones, that our bodies might sound when metabolism is off kilter. Now let's shift focus. Let's look at the real-world scenarios, the battlegrounds, where this concept of metabolic restoration really comes into play.
Yeah.
Because like you said, these aren't just generic wellness ideas. They're targeted responses to some pretty profound physiological disruptions.
Absolutely. And we're looking at maybe 4 key areas today. Recovery from critical illness is a big one.
Okay.
Then various endocrine disorders, states of malnutrition, both under and over. And finally, chronic fatigue syndromes, often linked to mitochondrial dysfunction.
Right, the cell's powerhouses.
Exactly. Each has unique challenges, but they all share this unifying goal, guiding the body back to a more adaptive functional state. Hashtag HANT1, metabolic restoration after critical illness or major physiological stress.
Okay, let's start with a really intense scenario, recovering from critical illness. Things like sepsis, major surgery, severe trauma. What actually happens to our metabolism when we're fighting for our lives in the ICU?
Yeah, it's dramatic. Critical illness triggers this powerful metabolic stress response. It's kind of counterintuitive sometimes.
How so?
Well, initially, there's often an ebb phase. Metabolism slows down, the body tries to conserve energy, but that's quickly followed by a severe flow phase. That's hypermetabolism and intense catabolism.
Oh, overdrive.
Complete overdrive.
Yeah.
Stress hormones, inflammatory cytokines, they're sky high. They relentlessly break down muscle and fat. This leads to severe insulin resistance, high blood sugar. The body is essentially consuming itself to fuel the fight, even at the cost of its own vital tissues.
That sounds incredibly draining, destructive even. What are the sort of long-term consequences of this metabolic overdrive that starts in the ICU?
Well, prolonged bed rest, often unavoidable, plus severe undernutrition, plus all that systemic inflammation, it leads to profound losses. Like we mentioned, patients can lose around 15–20% of their body weight, mostly muscle, in just a few weeks.
Still shocks me, that number.
It's huge. And one study found that 38% of patients were moderately to severely malnourished at hospital discharge, up from maybe 14% when they first got to the ICU.
Wow.
And critically, even a year later, many haven't regained their pre-illness weight or muscle mass. Their metabolic engine isn't just sputtering, it's often significantly damaged. It needs focused rebuilding.
So, okay, how do we even begin that daunting task, rebuilding that metabolic engine? What does restoration look like here?
It's got to be a gradual, multi-pronged process. And it really needs to start early, even in the ICU if possible. Nutritional rehabilitation is absolutely vital.
Right, getting fuel in.
Yes, but carefully.
Right.
Early and adequate protein and calories are critical. But paradoxically, avoiding overfeeding is just as important, especially early on. That can cause its own problems. Then, post-ICU, oral intake is often really low. Maybe only 50–75% of what they actually need. So proactive support like tube feeding or supplements and definitely dietitian follow-up are essential.
And the specific nutrients matter too, I assume.
Hugely. Micronutrient repletion for deficiencies like thiamine, vitamin D, iron. These are often depleted, and they're crucial cofactors for so many metabolic processes. You need the spark plugs as well as the fuel.
Makes sense. And I imagine movement, or lack thereof, plays a massive role after being bedridden for potentially weeks.
Immensely. Gradual mobilization and physical therapy are metabolic interventions just as much as they are physical ones.
How so?
Well, patients often develop ICU-acquired weakness, ICU-AW. It's incredibly common. 2/3 of ARDS survivors, for example, have significant functional limitations a year later.
2/3?
Yeah. So structured rehab isn't just about regaining raw strength. It's about rebuilding muscle tissue and literally retraining the energy pathways within the cells.
Ah.
The combination of nutrition plus exercise, appropriately dosed exercise, of course, provides both the building blocks, the protein, and the essential stimulus for muscle protein synthesis and, importantly, mitochondrial biogenesis.
Creating new power plants in the cells.
Exactly. Building new, healthier cellular power plants to replace or repair the damaged ones.
You mentioned mitochondrial dysfunction earlier when we talked about general symptoms. How does that cellular power failure specifically fit into critical illness recovery?
It's fascinating and also quite concerning. ICU patients can develop these acquired mitochondrial impairments. It's not something they were born with.
Right.
And these directly contribute to their profound weakness and exercise intolerance during recovery. Research shows their muscles can actually accumulate fat droplets inside the muscle cells, and they lose oxidative enzymes.
So the engines get clogged and lose parts.
Kind of, yeah. The tiny engines within their cells that normally burn fuel efficiently become less efficient and are damaged. It's a profound form of metabolic power failure right at the cellular level, meaning even if you deliver enough oxygen to the tissues, they can't effectively use it to generate energy. The whole system is inefficient.
So given all these immense challenges, the muscle loss, the malnutrition, the mitochondrial damage, what are the broader outcomes for these survivors? What does this tell us about the goal here?
Well, it highlights the long road ahead for many. Only about 50% of ICU survivors might return to work a year later.
Only half.
Yeah, and functional exercise capacity might only reach about 60% of what was normal for them before they got sick. But, and this is key, with comprehensive rehab, improvements do accumulate over time.
Okay, so there is hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The quality of life for ICU survivors is heavily, heavily dependent on regaining physical function, which underscores why this aftercare is so critical.
Right.
This whole challenge has really led to the concept of ICU survivorship. It emphasizes that the goal isn't just getting someone out of the ICU alive. We want patients to live fully afterwards.
To get their life back.
Exactly. It's about restoring their metabolic capacity, their energy, their function, so they can truly engage with life again. #Tag2. Metabolic restoration in endocrine disorders.
Okay, so beyond that acute, intense scenario of critical illness, our hormones, as you mentioned, play this massive, intricate role in metabolism. What happens when endocrine disorders, which are often more chronic, kind of smolder away and disrupt that balance?
Yeah, endocrine disorders often cause these more chronic, sometimes slower burn metabolic disruptions. The good news, often, is that many are treatable.
Right.
But the restoration usually requires more than just popping a pill. Lifestyle adjustments, multidisciplinary care, these are often key to true sustainable restoration.
Okay, let's take type 2 diabetes. It's so prevalent. How does metabolic restoration apply there, especially given its chronic nature? How do we move beyond just managing it?
Yeah, great example. Type 2 diabetes is fundamentally a disease of dysregulated glucose metabolism, typically involving insulin resistance. So metabolic restoration here means achieving better glycemic control, yes, but also improving the body's sensitivity to insulin, right? Getting the system working properly again.
And how do we do that?
Lifestyle modification is truly foundational. It's not just an add-on.
Right.
Large trials, like the Big Diabetes Prevention Program, showed that intensive lifestyle changes, we're talking diet, activity, and actually modest weight loss, around 7% of body weight lowered the risk of progressing from prediabetes to diabetes by a whopping 58%.
58%, just from lifestyle.
Just from lifestyle. And even more astonishingly, some individuals with established type 2 diabetes can actually achieve remission.
Remission, like it goes away.
Essentially, yes. Getting blood sugar back to non-diabetic levels without medication. Studies have shown nearly half of participants reversing their diabetes with significant weight loss, often 15 kilograms or more.
That's incredible. So lifestyle can be incredibly powerful, even for reversal in some cases. But what about for people listening who maybe have tried significant lifestyle changes without getting full remission? Where does medication fit in? And maybe talk about the newer options like GLP-1 agonists. What's the science there?
Absolutely. For those where lifestyle alone isn't enough, or for more advanced cases, medication plays a crucial role. And the newer options, like the GLP-1 receptor agonists, things like semaglutide, are really interesting.
How do they work?
Well, they not only show significant blood sugar improvement, but they also lead to an average of 15% body weight reduction. They effectively help restore a more normal metabolic profile. They work by mimicking a natural gut hormone that impacts satiety, feeling full, and also helps regulate glucose.
Ah, okay. So they work on multiple pathways.
Exactly. So it's often not an either situation between lifestyle and meds. It's about finding the right combination for that individual to restore metabolic balance.
And what about other key hormonal players, like the thyroid? You hear it called the master regulator sometimes.
Yeah, the thyroid gland is definitely our body's metabolic throttle. It sets the pace.
Okay.
So hypothyroidism, an underactive thyroid, it slows metabolism right down, causes that profound fatigue, weight gain, mental sluggishness we talked about.
Right.
Replacing the deficient thyroid hormone with levothyroxine is a very clear mechanism-based restoration. You're putting back what's missing, bringing metabolism back towards normal.
And the opposite, hyperthyroidism.
Yeah, hyperthyroidism revs metabolism up way too high, unhealthily high, causing rapid weight loss, muscle wasting, anxiety, racing heart. Here, the goal is reducing that excess thyroid hormone to normalize the metabolic rate.
Yeah.
Again, restoring balance.
Okay. And what about PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome? It's talked about as hormonal, but you mentioned it has this big metabolic component, especially insulin resistance.
Absolutely. A really key feature of PCOS for many women is insulin resistance. And that insulin resistance often drives the hormonal imbalances affecting ovulation, androgen levels, the whole picture.
So the metabolism problem causes the hormone problem.
It's often a vicious cycle, but the insulin resistance is a major driver. So metabolic restoration in PCOS primarily centers on lifestyle intervention as the first-line therapy.
Lifestyle again.
Yes, and it's truly powerful here. Even a modest 5–10% weight loss in women with PCOS who are overweight can significantly improve menstrual regularity, ovulation, and reduce those insulin levels, which in turn helps correct the downstream hormonal imbalances.
Wow, just 5–10% weight loss can make that much difference hormonally. That's really powerful. What does that tell us about how sensitive the body is to even small shifts in metabolic burden?
It really underscores how adaptable and responsive the metabolic system is. Even relatively small sustainable improvements can create this positive ripple effect. Improving insulin signaling, breaking that cycle of hormonal disruption, it's often about nudging the system gently back toward its natural equilibrium rather than needing massive drastic changes. #tag3. Metabolic restoration and malnutrition and refeeding.
Okay, so metabolism is clearly affected by what we eat, or maybe what we don't eat. Can we talk about malnutrition now? Both sides of it, undernutrition and overnutrition, and how metabolism is restored in those very different contexts.
Yeah, malnutrition in all its forms profoundly impairs metabolic function. Let's start with severe undernutrition, think starvation, or conditions like anorexia nervosa.
Okay.
Patients in this state are generally in a hypometabolic state. Their metabolism is slowed right down to conserve energy. They often have low body temperature, impaired immunity.
The body's shutting down non-essentials.
Exactly. But the critical challenge here, which is often misunderstood, maybe even by healthcare professionals sometimes, is refeeding syndrome.
Refeeding syndrome, what is that?
It's a really dangerous phenomenon. If you feed someone who's been severely starved too much, too fast.
Which sounds like the intuitive thing to do, right? Give them lots of food.
Exactly. But it can cause severe electrolyte imbalances, especially a huge drop in phosphate in the blood. And low phosphate can lead to muscle weakness, heart failure, breathing problems, even death. It's a metabolic shock to the system.
Wow. Okay, so it's not as simple as just giving someone a big meal after they've been starved. That's quite counterintuitive.
Precisely. The protocols are really strict and they are life-saving. The mantra is start low, go slow.
Okay.
You begin with maybe only about 50% of their estimated energy needs, and then gradually increase over 5 to 7 days, monitoring them very closely.
And the electrolytes.
Crucially important. Electrolytes like phosphate, potassium, and magnesium, plus thiamine, vitamin B1, must be aggressively supplemented before you even start refeeding and continue during it.
Why thiamine? B1.
Thiamine is absolutely vital for carbohydrate metabolism. If you suddenly give carbs to someone who's thiamine deficient, which starved people often are, their body can't process them properly, and that can precipitate serious neurological problems or heart issues. It's critical.
Okay, that's a really important point about undernutrition. What about the flip side? Overnutrition and obesity. Many people struggle with weight, and that seems to impact metabolism too. How do we restore metabolism there without falling into that trap of crash diets that, let's be honest, often fail long term?
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and often challenges a lot of the conventional wisdom, or at least the diet culture messages.
Okay.
Overnutrition, leading to overweight and obesity. also creates a maladaptive metabolic state. It's not just excess storage. The excess fat tissue, especially the visceral fat deep inside.
The dangerous kind.
Exactly. It acts almost like an endocrine organ itself. It secretes inflammatory signals, hormones, that promote insulin resistance throughout the body.
Ah, okay.
This leads to what we call metabolic inflexibility.
What does that mean? Metabolic inflexibility.
It means your body struggles to efficiently switch between burning fat and burning carbohydrates for fuel, depending on what you've eaten or if you're fasting. Healthy metabolism is flexible.
Got it.
And it also leads to hyperinsulinemia, the body pumping out too much insulin, constantly trying to manage blood sugar, which can cause further problems down the line, like more fat storage.
Okay. You mentioned avoiding crash diets, and I think many listeners have felt that frustration. The weight comes back, sometimes more. But what you're about to share about the Biggest Loser study, I think this is a truly eye-opening revelation for anyone who's struggled with long-term weight maintenance.
It really is. The body actively, biologically defends its weight, especially its highest weight, and rapid, significant weight loss can trigger this powerful metabolic adaptation.
Meaning metabolism slows down.
Significantly slows down. Your resting metabolic rate decreases much more than you'd expect just from the loss alone. It makes it incredibly hard to maintain that loss.
So your body fights back.
It fights back hard. The famous Biggest Loser study followed contestants years after the show. It showed they had a persistently slower metabolism, burning around 500 to 700 calories per day, less than expected based on their new weight and body composition, even 6 years later.
500 to 700 calories less every single day.
Every single day. That's not just a challenge. You could argue it's a form of metabolic injury induced by the extreme weight loss.
That explains so much about why maintaining weight loss after crash dieting is so hard. So what is the sustainable, science-backed approach to metabolic restoration in this context, if crash diets cause injury?
Sustainable restoration focuses on moderate calorie deficits, aiming for maybe 0.51 kilogram or 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss per rint, slow and steady.
Okay.
A balanced, nutrient-dense diet focusing on whole foods, adequate protein, fiber, not extreme restriction,
Right.
and regular physical activity, crucially including strength training. That helps preserve or even build metabolically active muscle mass while you're losing fat. That helps counteract some of that metabolic slowdown.
Keep the engine burning.
Exactly. And for more severe cases, pharmacotherapy, like those GLP-1 receptor agonists we mentioned, which can lead to 15–20% body weight reduction, or bariatric surgery also play important roles. Interestingly, bariatric surgery often causes type 2 diabetes remission very quickly, sometimes before significant weight loss, likely due to hormonal changes triggered by altering the gut.
Fascinating.
So it's really about working with the body's biology, understanding these adaptations, and aiming for gradual, sustainable changes, not fighting against it with extreme measures.
So it's about shifting the body into a healthier, functioning metabolic state, improving things like insulin sensitivity and flexibility, even if someone doesn't reach some culturally ideal weight. And recognizing our bodies are designed to resist starvation, which is what crash dieting mimics.
Precisely. Function over form, you could say. #tag4. Mitochondrial dysfunction and fatigue syndromes.
Okay, not all metabolic problems are so visible as weight changes or wound healing, right? Some are deep inside our cells, in those powerhouses we keep mentioning, the mitochondria. What happens when those engines start to sputter? How does that impact our energy levels?
Yeah, when mitochondria underperform, the whole body can feel like a drained battery, just no energy. And this seems to be central to conditions like chronic fatigue syndrome, or MECFS as it's also known. Also, post-viral fatigue syndromes, including long COVID and certain inherited mitochondrial diseases. It really points to a fundamental energy crisis right at the cellular level.
So what does that cellular energy crisis actually look like for someone with, say, chronic fatigue syndrome?
Well, MECFS is characterized by severe, unexplained fatigue that is profoundly worsened by exertion, that post-exertional malaise we talked about earlier. Even minor activity can cause a major crash days later. And research is increasingly showing various mitochondrial abnormalities in these patients, things like structural damage to the mitochondria, reduced oxidative metabolism, meaning they're not burning fuel efficiently, and much slower regeneration of ATP after exercise.
So the batteries don't recharge properly.
Exactly. And some patients also show deficiencies in critical cofactors needed for mitochondria to work, things like carnitine or coenzyme Q10. So it's like the engines are damaged and they might be missing key ingredients to run.
Okay, so when the problem is that fundamental, right down at the cellular energy production level, How do you even begin to restore metabolism? It sounds incredibly challenging.
It is challenging, and it has to be highly individualized. There's no single magic bullet. A key strategy we often emphasize is pacing,
Pacing, meaning?
meaning patients learn to very carefully modulate their activity levels,
Yeah.
physical, cognitive, emotional, to stay within their available energy envelope
Yeah.
to avoid triggering those crashes.
So managing energy, not necessarily trying to push through.
Exactly. The goal is to avoid overtaxing those malfunctioning mitochondria. It's about conserving energy and preventing further harm. We also sometimes explore mitochondrial nutrient supplementation using things like CoQ10, L-carnitine, certain B vitamins, which are cofactors for those energy pathways.
Trying to support the existing machinery.
Yeah, the idea isn't always about adding more fuel, but helping the body use the fuel it has more efficiently or supporting the mitochondrial function that remains without overloading the damaged system.
And what about long COVID? It's so current, and I know fatigue is a massive issue there. Are we seeing similar mitochondrial connections?
Yes, long COVID shares many similarities with MECFS, particularly the profound debilitating fatigue and the post-exertional malaise. And emerging research does indeed indicate that mitochondrial impairment is likely a significant factor in the fatigue experienced by many long COVID patients. Studies are showing their muscle cells seem to produce less energy, similar to what's seen in MECFS. This again really highlights the importance of cautious, titrated exercise, if tolerated at all, and really emphasizing energy conservation and pacing strategies to avoid those symptom flare-ups. It's about respecting the limits of a compromised cellular energy system and trying to foster gentle, gradual recovery.
Okay, so from the drama of the intensive care unit to the subtle, deep cellular struggles of fatigue syndromes, a really powerful truth seems to have emerged here. Our metabolism is this incredibly complex symphony, not a solo instrument.
Beautifully put, yeah.
And this complexity means genuine metabolic restoration is rarely, if ever, a one-person job. It sounds like it truly requires a team. So who exactly needs to be on this critical dream team of care?
You're spot on. The very nature of metabolic restoration is profoundly interdisciplinary. It has to be. It integrates medicine, nutrition, physiology, often psychology or mental health care. No single specialty holds all the keys for such a complex, interconnected system.
It sounds almost like a metabolic pit crew, right? Ensuring every part of the engine is tuned and working together. So what are the key roles on this team, and why is their collaboration so absolutely crucial?
Well, you definitely have the physicians, the doctors who diagnose and manage the underlying diseases, whether it's diabetes, thyroid issues, or the complications of critical illness. They provide that core medical framework.
Okay.
Then, dietitians are absolutely pivotal. They design the safe and effective nutritional plans, whether it's carefully navigating refeeding syndrome, teaching carb counting for diabetes, ensuring adequate protein for muscle repair, or just guaranteeing nutrient density for recovery.
The fuel experts.
Exactly. Then you have physical therapists and occupational therapists. They help patients regain strength, improve mobility, learn energy conservation techniques crucial for fatigue syndromes, and ultimately, they help boost muscle mass and mitochondrial efficiency through structured, appropriate physical activity.
Right, the movement specialists.
And don't forget mental health professionals. Psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, they're crucial for treating co-occurring conditions like depression or anxiety, which are common with chronic illness. And they provide behavioral therapy to support the often difficult, long-term lifestyle changes required. Think eating disorders, stress management, adherence to complex plans.
Yeah, the psychological piece is huge.
Absolutely massive.
And beyond those core roles, anyone else involved?
Oh, yeah. Nurses are often monitoring day-to-day status, providing essential education and ongoing support. Pharmacists help manage complex medication regimens, looking for interactions or side effects. Social workers can be vital too, helping with resources like access to healthy food, navigating insurance, or finding community support services.
It really takes a village.
It does. But perhaps the most crucial members of the team, honestly, it's you, the patient, and your family or support system.
Interesting. Why?
Because your understanding of what's going on, your active engagement in the plan, your day-to-day efforts, that's fundamental. And the support system around you makes a huge difference. Without patient buy-in and consistent effort, even the most perfectly designed plan can falter.
So it's not just a collection of specialists sending reports to each other. It has to be a truly coordinated, seamless effort with the patient at the center.
Exactly. True interdisciplinary coordination, maybe through joint clinics where you see multiple specialists together, or through shared electronic health records with good communication, or regular case conferences where the team discusses complex patients.
Right.
The idea of dedicated metabolic rehabilitation units or programs is even starting to emerge. A bit like cardiac rehab, but focused on patients recovering from complex metabolic insults, like severe illness or those managing chronic metabolic diseases. It's about building that structured pathway back to better metabolic health.
Okay, this entire deep dive, it's really been about restoring functional metabolic health, grounded in solid science. But you can't go online or walk down a health food aisle without being bombarded by talk about boosting your metabolism or resetting it with quick fixes, miracle supplements, often dubious biohacks. How does this rigorous, evidence-based approach of metabolic restoration cut through all that noise and, frankly, often confusing hype?
Oh, this is such a critical area because those popular notions often vastly oversimplify or just completely misrepresent how metabolism actually works. And worse, they can be counterproductive, sometimes actively harmful, or just drain your wallet without providing any real benefit.
Okay, give us some concrete examples of the hype we should be really wary of. Things that go beyond just being ineffective and might actually be risky.
Well, detox diets and cleanses are a prime example. They're everywhere.
Right. Juice cleanses, tea detoxes.
Exactly. The reality is, your liver and kidneys are incredibly sophisticated organs that continuously detoxify and eliminate waste products. That's their job. There is simply no credible scientific evidence that short-term, often very restrictive, cleanses augment this natural process.
And the harm.
They can cause harm. Things like significant muscle loss because they're often very low in protein, severe electrolyte imbalances, dehydration, and in some rare cases, even acute liver injury. A normal, healthy body detoxes perfectly well on its own, thank you very much.
Okay, detoxes are out. What about claims of resetting your metabolism or these biohacks that promise rapid transformations?
Yeah, these terms get thrown around a lot, usually without much substance. Claims of resetting your metabolism in like 3 days are often wildly overblown, while certain practices, like maybe intermittent fasting, do have legitimate science behind them for some individuals in some contexts. They don't magically reset a chronically unhealthy metabolism overnight. And this whole biohacking trend, while some aspects are about optimizing health, it can sometimes lead to risky practices, like megadosing unapproved supplements without any medical oversight or understanding of potential interactions.
Right. Self-experimenting gone wrong.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Real sustainable metabolic improvements come from consistent lifestyle habits, addressing underlying medical issues and evidence-based interventions, not from quick hacks or magic pills marketed online.
What about clean eating? That sounds inherently healthy, but I can see how maybe taking it to an extreme could become problematic.
You're right. Sensible advice around eating whole, unprocessed foods is great, but sometimes it can spiral into this rigid dogma, leading to what's called orthorexia nervosa.
Orthorexia?
Yeah, it's an unhealthy, obsessive preoccupation with eating healthy or pure foods. And paradoxically, this extreme restriction can actually result in severe malnutrition because people start cutting out entire food groups. Dairy, grains, legumes, fats, fearing they're unclean or inflammatory. I've genuinely seen patients who restricted so many foods, they became deficient in essential nutrients like protein, iron, calcium, B12. An overly restrictive diet, ironically, can end up slowing metabolism by not providing enough energy or nutrients, trapping individuals in this cycle of fatigue and frustration.
Wow. So trying too hard to be healthy can backfire metabolically.
It absolutely can if taken to extremes without proper guidance.
And finally, what about the pursuit of extreme leanness? Shredding for aesthetic goals, which we see constantly, especially on social media. What's the potential metabolic cost of that approach?
Yeah, that's another area of concern. Rapid weight loss, pushing for more than maybe 1 kilogram or 2 pounds a week, consistently often breaks down significant amounts of muscle tissue along with fat. And it provokes those deep-seated starvation responses we talked about earlier, leading to that significant metabolic adaptation, the slowdown.
The biggest loser effect again.
Exactly. And that yo-yo dieting pattern, extreme dieting, regaining weight, dieting again, can actually increase your overall body fat percentage over time. Because when weight is regained after muscle loss, it tends to be disproportionately fat.
Oh, interesting.
And in both women and men, pushing for extreme leanness, especially combined with high levels of exercise, can lead to relative energy deficiency in sport.
Where would you ask?
Yeah, it happens when your energy intake, your calories, is just too low to support the demands of your training plus your basic bodily functions. low energy availability. And this profoundly impairs metabolic rate, reproductive function, like losing periods in women, bone formation to immunity. This is metabolic harm, plain and simple, not optimization.
Okay, so the clear message here is cut through the marketing hype, be wary of miracle cures, and really focus on the long game of sustainable, functional metabolic health, grounded in what the science actually shows works.
Absolutely. The wellness industry, unfortunately, is rife with products claiming to ignite your metabolism with zero scientific backing, and some are directly dangerous. The science-based approach might seem boring in comparison. A consistent balanced diet, regular appropriate physical activity, adequate sleep, managing stress, getting proper medical care.
The fundamentals.
The fundamentals. But they are profoundly effective and safe. And the focus should really be on health span and functional capacity, having energy, feeling good, being resilient, rather than just chasing an aesthetic or a number on the scale. Someone might technically remain overweight by BMI standards, but significantly improve their blood sugar, their cholesterol, their blood pressure, their endurance. Metabolically, they are far, far healthier, even if they didn't become model thin. True metabolic restoration is about giving you back the energy and resilience to live your life fully. #getting principles for effective metabolic restoration.
This has been such a comprehensive deep dive. It's shown us that metabolic restoration is complex, yes, but also powerfully achievable when approached correctly. As we wrap up, what are the core principles, the guiding lights, that should really inform our approach, whether we're patients trying to navigate our own health journey or practitioners guiding others?
Yeah, based on everything we've discussed, I think there are about 7 crucial principles that really emerge from the sources and clinical experience.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, address underlying causes, not just symptoms. Always dig deeper. Ask why the metabolism is disrupted and treat that root pathology, not just chase the visible signs like fatigue or weight gain.
Makes sense.
Number 2. Second, use evidence-based interventions targeted at metabolic pathways. Rely on methods proven through research and solid clinical guidelines. Emphasize quality nutrition and structured, appropriate exercise as foundational pillars. Avoid the fads.
Right, science over hype.
Exactly. Third, integrate multidisciplinary expertise. Remember that pit crew analogy. Collaboration between doctors, dietitians, therapists, mental health professionals. That integration yields the best, most holistic results.
Okay, fourth.
Individualize and adapt plans. There is no one-size-fits-all solution here. You have to tailor the approach to each person's unique medical history, their genetics, their preferences, their lifestyle, and importantly, how they respond and progress. Everyone's metabolic journey is different.
Crucial point. Number 5.
Prioritize sustainability and long-term health over quick fixes. Focus on gradual, maintainable changes, things you can stick with. That sets you on a lifelong path of healthier metabolism rather than a fleeting trend you abandon after a few weeks.
A long game.
Always the long game.
Yes.
Sixth, educate and empower the patient and their family. When people understand the why behind the interventions, adherence goes way up, and it builds resilience against all that misinformation out there. You want the patient to be an active, informed participant, not just a passive recipient of care.
Absolutely. And the last one, number 7.
Finally, number 7, monitor, support, and adjust continuously. Metabolic restoration is rarely a smooth, straight line. There will be bumps. Regular check-ins, monitoring progress, being flexible that allows for early detection of any issues and for course correction along the way. You need to stay agile.
Those are really powerful guiding lights. Address the cause, use evidence, work as a team, individualize, aim for sustainability, empower the patient, and stay flexible. That feels like a solid roadmap. #tag outro.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible deep dive into metabolic restoration. It is so clear that this is about so much more than just counting calories or calories in, calories out. It's about this incredibly complex, finely tuned system within us, and also about how remarkably resilient our bodies can be when they get the right kind of support. Indeed. Metabolic restoration is really about reestablishing that delicate balance in your body's complex energy economy. It's not about quick fixes. It's not about punishing the body. It's about a mechanism-based, interdisciplinary approach that really considers everything, the molecular signals, the organ systems, the physical condition, the psychological state.
The whole person.
The whole person. And the ultimate goal, really, is to enable you to live fully, to heal when injured, to resist illness better, and just to have the energy to engage with your life.
Yeah.
It's about achieving metabolic fitness and resilience, not just chasing a number on a scale or some fleeting wellness trend.
So as we finish up, what's a final provocative thought you want to leave our listeners with? Something to really chew on from this conversation.
Okay. Maybe this. Consider how truly remarkable it is that the human body, even after profound disruptions like critical illness we discussed, or years of chronic disease, possesses this innate capacity to heal, to adapt, to recalibrate. Your metabolism isn't just some simple furnace that you need to stoke harder. It's more like a finely tuned orchestra, an orchestra of life, constantly adapting and seeking harmony. So the question for you, for everyone listening, is, are you truly listening to its music? Are you paying attention to its cues? And are you consciously giving it the conditions it needs to play in harmony?
That's a fantastic thought to leave us with. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise on this deep dive today.
My pleasure. It was a great discussion.
And thank you all for joining us. Until next time, stay curious and keep seeking knowledge.